Guys, it's an illusion. Illusion, illusion, illusion. Everything you're experiencing is an illusion, right? It's actually interesting that most people do not realize that they are in a simulation, they're living in an illusion, that everything you see is a projection of your consciousness, it's a projection of your subconscious mind. Because everyone's stuck within their frequencies, everyone's locked within their frequency. They don't even know everything is energy, frequency, and vibrations. So how are they gonna shift their frequency if they don't even know that's how reality works? And even the people who understand this is how reality works, most of them don't even know how to do it themselves. So one thing that's extremely interesting is to truly come to the realization that everything is actually an illusion. And the only way you would come to a conclusion like this is through personal experience, right? Me saying this is an illusion, it doesn't mean anything. You don't learn anything from words, information. You learn through personal experience. You take something that someone says, and then until you experience it personally, it doesn't become real until you experience personally. So I can say that, it's true. We actually live in a simulation. We actually live in an illusion because I've shifted frequencies, right? And it's like, but, let me be a bit more specific. Melvin, what do you mean you've shifted frequencies? Explain it. Well, it's interesting. A perfect example of this is, let's say someone has a bad habit, right? Let's say you have a bad habit. You can have a bad habit, right? And for you to get rid of that bad habit, it might take some time to get rid of that bad habit. But then when you shift your frequency, you shift the habit instantly. It's almost as if you never had the habit to begin with. It's a mind warp. It trips you out. It's the weirdest thing in the world. For a perfect example, let's say you could have someone, let's say there's someone with a cigarette addiction, right? There's someone, they have a cigarette addiction. You can literally, right? Like for someone to get rid of a cigarette addiction, it's going to take them some time. They're going to have withdrawals. It might take a year, 2 years. It might take a while. Even with alcohol, an alcoholic's a good example. An alcoholic, it might take them a while, to do this and that. But that's the thing you have to understand. Time is an illusion. Everything's an illusion. And what you're experiencing within your physical reality is just, it's just a projection of your frequency, right? So let's say someone has a cigarette addiction or they have an alcohol addiction, for example, right? The craziest, most remarkable thing about this is, let's say I was to take someone, I'm saying, hey, this is how reality works. I help them reprogram their mind, right? And so there's someone with a cigarette addiction and they're an alcoholic, right? If they do what I told them to do to reprogram their mind and shift their frequency, they don't have a cigarette addiction anymore. They don't have an alcohol addiction anymore. And it's instant, right? It can happen instantly. Let's say I help them reprogram their mind. It can happen instantly. Or maybe within a couple days, they have zero desire, zero urges to smoke cigarettes or do alcohol. It's almost as if they never had the urges to begin with. And you know what the craziest thing about this is? The biggest mind warp, the biggest thing, this stuff is trippy, bro. The craziest thing about it is the person who used to smoke cigarettes or do alcohol, it's going to seem like they never used to do it. It's going to, when they think about the version of them that used to do it, it feels like a bad dream. It feels like it never existed. It feels like it was never real to begin with. When you genuinely understand how to reprogram your subconscious mind and shift your frequency, right? It's like, that's why a lot of people call it quantum leaping. Because, for example, let's say someone has a cigarette and an alcohol addiction, right? It could take them a couple years to get over it. But so they're right here. This is the frequency they're at. This is the frequency of them taking a couple years to finally get over it. But the thing is, right, when you understand how to reprogram your subconscious mind, you skip the 2 years it takes you to get over this. And it happens in 2 days. It happens in 2 weeks. You just skip all of this gunk in between. And you just go from here to here. And you skip all the time in between. That's why a lot of people, they call this quantum leap. But the thing is, when you quantum leap or when you experience one of these shifts, it's a mind warp. You're like, what the? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to your conscious mind. It's the biggest, mind warp. It's super trippy. It's like, it just doesn't make sense. Your conscious mind is in awe. Your conscious mind, your physical mind is shocked, right? Because this is what you're doing. When you understand how to do this, you're operating on a multi-dimensional level of consciousness. You're doing, this is some crazy stuff. Reprogramming your subconscious mind, shifting your frequency. It's like you're time traveling, quantum leaping. You're operating on a multi-dimensional level of consciousness. So when I say that we live in an illusion, one of the ways to actually truly understand that you live in an illusion is to, let's say you have an issue or you have something you need to fix, and you solve it instantly. Something that could take a couple years to fix, it gets solved instantly. And then when you shift into that new frequency, the craziest, weirdest thing about it is it feels as if you never had that issue to begin with. It feels like it was a bad dream. And here's another thing, right? So everything is an illusion, right? The frequency I'm on is an illusion. The frequency you're on is an illusion. Some people, they're trying to start a business, right? They want to make money from a business, right? Most people are experiencing an illusion of poverty. You can experience an illusion of abundance or an illusion of poverty, but nonetheless, they're all illusions. You can experience an illusion where you make a bunch of money and you're able to do whatever you want, or you can experience an illusion of poverty. Most people are experiencing the illusion of poverty, right? But it's all an illusion nonetheless. And the craziest thing about the frequency is you can only perceive the frequency that you're vibrating on. So a perfect example of this is, let's say someone is poor, right? If someone is poor, it feels like you're going to be poor forever a lot of the times, because that's the frequency you're on. You can't see, for most average people who, don't make a lot of money, they can't see anything beyond that frequency of poverty, right? They can't see it. Or let's say someone has extreme anxiety or extreme trauma, or they're poor, super poor, right? When you're on that frequency, everything is energy, frequency, and vibrations. When you're on that frequency, the illusion of the frequency is so perfect that you can only perceive the exact specific frequency that you're currently vibrating on. You can't perceive any other frequencies. So that means, let's say someone has extreme anxiety, right? They cannot see a reality where they have peaceful, positive thoughts. Like, basically, the best way to say it feels like whatever issue it is that you have, you're going to have it for eternity. Someone who's poor, they feel like they're always going to be poor. Someone who has extreme anxiousness, or let's say they have trauma, it feels like they're always going to have it. It feels like there's no way out. But it's a lie. It's an illusion. It's a lie. It's an illusion of your current frequency. Your old frequency is lying to you, because you can only perceive the frequency that you're currently vibrating on. That's why it's such a mind warp. Literally, let's say someone has a cigarette addiction, right? And they want to get rid of it. A vaping addiction, cigarette addiction, right? Someone with a cigarette addiction, it's very difficult for them to see a reality where they're not smoking cigarettes, because that's the frequency they're on. They can't perceive anything outside of that frequency. It's an illusion. But the thing is, right? Remember, what I'm talking about, it's a multi-dimensional level of awareness and consciousness. This goes beyond your conscious and physical mind. So even if you fully understand what you're doing, after you shift into a completely different frequency, it still leaves your conscious mind and physical mind in a state of disbelief. It's like, what's going on here? It's weird. So a perfect example, let's say you take someone with a cigarette addiction or a vaping addiction, right? They cannot perceive a reality where they, aren't smoking cigarettes, right? And they think that they have to go through years and years of withdrawals for them to finally get off of it. Not realizing that if they reprogram their subconscious mind, it could take 2 days. It could take a week, and it's instant. And the craziest thing about all of this is that, let's say someone has a cigarette addiction, right? They're vibrating at the frequency where they have a cigarette addiction and they don't want to have one anymore. That's a frequency. All you're doing is, let's say I say, hey, do X, Y, Z, do this, right? All they're doing is I help them reprogram their mind, and then boom, within 2 days, a week, 2 weeks, it's completely gone. The craziest thing about all of it is now that they're vibrating at a frequency of a version of them that's never smoked cigarettes. They don't even have a desire to do it. That's why I say it's trippy. It's a mind warp, because your conscious, your physical mind, you are currently, let's say reality is a movie, you are watching the movie and you are observing the experience of the version of you that smokes cigarettes, right? And then the person completely shifted, right? Usually, right? Because remember, time is an illusion as well. So usually, you'd go through that couple years, you'd go through that couple years in between, and then you'd finally get to that frequency where you don't smoke, right? But no, not for the motherfucker who understands how to reprogram their mind, right? Literally, you're right. This person's here. I say, hey, you're addicted to this. You don't want to be. Do this, and you're set, bro. You're done. You skip all the stuff in between and you skip all the way to that frequency. It's like time traveling, the frequency of the version of you that never smokes. So the craziest, most remarkable thing about all of it is that's like your conscious physical mind is going to be in shock. It's going to be like, what the? It's not, it feels trippy because one day, it could be yesterday. Let's say it's Friday. Friday, you had a cigarette addiction. And then Saturday, it feels like you've never had a cigarette addiction in your life. It's the weirdest thing in reality, right? And I'm just using this for an example. I've never had a cigarette addiction. I'm just giving you guys examples, right? So, yeah, and that's why I say illusion, right? We live in illusion. Most people have never actually created such a drastic shift in their energy and their frequency. Basically, the way reality works is it's like you're passing through frames within the simulation. Your consciousness is passing through these frames. Your consciousness you're watching a movie, right? Your consciousness is passing through this movie, right? But the thing is, when you shift your frequency, you create such a massive shift in your energy and your frequency. You shift into a completely different film strip entirely. And that's why there's that trippy effect. You're just like, that's why your conscious mind, your physical mind is in shock. It doesn't make sense. And it's when you have an experience like that, that's when you actually absolutely, naturally, truly realize that, it's an illusion. It's all an illusion. It's a simulation.